yeah, this brings us on to the second thing that I was going to talk about. In fact, Nick, I'm just going to unmute you one more time. Can you just read that out one more time, please?
Yeah, of course. I will never abandon you, no matter who comes and goes. Your feelings are welcome, and I will sit here and feel them with you. There is nowhere I would rather be than here with you right now.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So that's the essence of one of the most powerful teachings for healing anxiety. And that's the main thing that Alex and I teach on this course. It's learning to not abandon ourselves, learning to be with ourselves, learning to feel ourselves. What I spoke about the first part of this workshop was finding the freedom that's always here, the space of freedom that's always here. That's slightly different to what you're bringing in now. What I was speaking about before is more of the masculine approach to finding freedom. The masculine approach to finding freedom from anxiety, coming into that awareness. This, what you're speaking of, is a more feminine approach. Not abandoning yourself, being with yourself, sitting with yourself. So let's try this now as a meditation. So sit down and be relaxed. For the feminine approach, it's good to be relaxed. We don't necessarily want to sit up with a straight back and put loads of effort into the right meditation posture. You lie back as if you're lying back as a child in your grandmother's lap or something like that. And you just notice what's here. Because our whole lives we're running away from ourselves. I can't remember who says it, but there's this famous quote which is, man's biggest problem is that he can't sit in a room by himself. Our biggest problem as human beings is that we can't sit in a room by ourselves. We're afraid of ourselves. We're afraid of feeling ourselves. And the anxiety sufferer is afraid of feeling their feelings. And that is the only thing that keeps us caught in anxiety, is the fear of feeling, the fear of really being with ourselves. Now, for a lot of people, if you've been experiencing anxiety for a long time, especially many years, especially if there's been trauma, early childhood trauma, or any trauma, then we're likely cut off from our feelings. We live predominantly up here, and the constant getting away from it has meant that we actually cut ourselves off from really feeling. So it takes a bit of time to get in touch with the body. But we'll go into a little practice now. So put your hands up like this, facing the ceiling, and place them on your lap. And if I just say now, very simply, feel into your hands. What do your hands feel like? Without thinking about them, without necessarily needing to look at them, you can kind of feel a slight, subtle tingling in the hands. You may feel a slight, subtle tingling in the hands. An energy in the hands, the inner energy of the hands. Feet, legs, arms. You don't have to necessarily feel a lot. You might just feel little bits here and there. And what we're doing here when we place attention in the hands is we're withdrawing attention away from the thinking in the mind, because it's attention which gives fuel to the thinking in the mind. So when we withdraw attention away from that and place it in the body, and one of the easiest places to feel is just the simple sense of aliveness in the hands. Place attention there. That thinking mind settles down. And what you also might notice is when you sit in a quiet room and don't do anything, and you bring attention into the body, you might notice feelings there. You might notice butterflies in your belly. Anxiety is an energy in the body. And it's the not wanting to feel that energy of anxiety in the body, which brings us up into thinking in the mind, and which creates all of these thoughts in the head. And that is the suffering. So when you notice yourself being pulled up into that, coming into that, all you need to do is bring yourself into the feelings and meet that energy. Because what is it really? The reality of the energy in the body is it's a sensation, no more intense than the sensation of your buttocks on the seat right now. Nobody is in resistance to the sensation of the buttocks on the seat. That's that's the same intensity as the anxiety that can be felt in the body. The only difference is we don't say no to the sensation of our buttocks on the seat, but we say no to the sensation of the anxiety. The anxiety comes up, we say no, and we come up into thinking. And then the thinking creates more feeling in the body, which creates more thinking in the mind, which creates more feeling in the body. And that vicious cycle of thinking, feeling is created. And the way out of that isn't through thinking, it's through feeling. Sitting, feeling into the body. If I say now, feel the wetness of your tongue. If wetness is a word. Feel the wetness of your tongue. Your attention goes there. No effort at all. If I say, feel your buttocks on the seat, without any effort, just me saying that, attention goes to your buttocks on the seat. Moving attention is very easy. Now, if you have any sort of anxious feelings in the body, then I would say, in the same way, feel the anxious feelings. Place your attention in the feelings. Don't think about them, feel them. Embrace yourself. You can breathe into the body. Feel. Breathe into it. Feel every cell. And if you can't feel much in the body, if you can't feel many feelings, just stay with what you can feel in the hands and maybe the feet. It can take a little bit of time of practice to get more and more in touch with the body. But the more you do, the more able you are to be with yourself. I love the analogy of, and I know I've said this many times, but I love the analogy of the child, the scared child. In fact, I'll use a slightly different one. We'll use a scared pet, your dog. Your dog's, it's firework night. The dogs run away, it's fireworks night. It's late at night and you can't find the dog. Where's it gone? It's run away. And it gets back and it's been hearing all these bangs and it's, and your dog's all scared, it's panicked, it's shaking. What would you do to soothe its fear? Would you just lock it in a room, push it away? Right, I'll give it some chocolate. I'll give it some food. No, you'd pick it up, you'd put it on your lap, you'd hold it, you'd stroke it, you'd be with it, you'd soothe it. And that's what we do with our own fear. You feel it, you place your attention in it, you let it come closer to you, you stay with it without the intention of getting rid of it. Because if you're staying with it with the intention of getting rid of it, what you're really saying to it is, you're not welcome. And whenever you say you're not welcome to anything inside, it gets bigger, it holds on. This whole process is about coming out of resistance to what we're feeling inside. It's all about coming out of resistance, coming close. And when you come into the feelings, what you're really doing is coming out of resistance to them. Because as Eckhart Tolle says, full attention equals full acceptance equals surrender. And I'm going to bring this back to what Bill was talking about. With this, when the worst thing is happening, another thing Eckhart Tolle says, acceptance of the unacceptable is the highest form of grace in this world. Acceptance of the unacceptable. When the worst thing is happening, that is your opportunity to awaken. That is your opportunity for profound transformation. And one thing you can do when the worst thing is happening, whatever it is, it might be intense panic, intense fear, intense chaos in the mind. That was my worst thing. My worst thing was intense chaos and fear in the body and the mind. But whatever it is, when the worst thing has happened, it might be your partner dies. It might be anything. It's acceptance of the unacceptable, which brings about the transformation. And one way we can do this is by coming to fully feel ourselves. Now I'm going to give this, I'm going to give a process of how you can bring this surrender about. And I invite you to listen to this again on the recording if you need to. But you feel the hands. Something's going on in your life and you're caught in your mind. You're caught in the mind about it. What should I do? What's the future going to hold? Am I screwed? Is my life going to be like this forever? Whatever those thoughts are, that's going on in the mind. You let that do its thing and you feel the hands. You feel every cell within the hands. And then you feel into your feet, your legs, your arms, your belly, your chest. You feel any feelings coming up, any panic, any discomfort, any feelings at all. You fully feel them. And you allow every cell within your body to light up within your awareness. You allow every point of tension and tightness, every cell, every bit of you to light up within your awareness. You come fully into the body. And in coming fully into the body, you're coming out of the mind. And full attention equals full acceptance equals surrender. Because all suffering ever is us not wanting the present moment, is us in all it ever is us not wanting to feel what we're feeling in the body. Not wanting to feel what we're feeling in the body drives us into suffering in the mind. But when you fully bring your attention into the body, feel the hands, the arms, the legs, the feet, the tension, the tightness, the sensations, the throat, the head, the jaw. You feel. When you fully give attention to it, you're no longer running away from it and you're accepting it. Full attention equals full acceptance equals surrender. Eckhart Tolle calls this, and this isn't his thing, but this is the way of the cross. The way of the cross. Enlightenment through the way of the cross. Surrender. Full attention. Giving the body your full attention. Feeling every cell. It can be like a dimmer switch. The more attention you give the body, the brighter the cells light up. The brighter the inner aliveness of the body becomes. The mind doesn't want to die. The fearful mind wants to survive. The anxious mind wants to keep going. So you have to be stronger than it. And when I say you, I mean the one who's listening to this right now and resonating with this right now. And if you're nodding along and saying, yes, yes, then that is the one in you that is not the mind. The fearful mind doesn't want to hear this, but there's something in you which does. Something in you which is stronger than that mind. So you come into the body. Now, if there's a lot of panic in you, if you're someone who experiences a lot of panic, and I know people on this call do, some people on this call do, panic, it can feel, when you start to do this, it can feel like you're standing on the edge of a cliff. And when you touch in with the feelings, something in you can feel like this is really dangerous. The reason it feels like it's dangerous to touch in with the feelings is because you developed the mind, the thinking, anxious mind when you were a child to keep yourself safe. The anxious thinking in the mind believes it's keeping you safe by that thinking. It's doing the thinking to try and keep you safe. So when you come into the body and you stay with the feelings, and that naturally cuts that vicious cycle of thinking feeling. So you come into the feeling, and that naturally, it takes the power source, it takes the fuel source away from the mind. Something within you might be afraid of that because it feels like it's safer to think than it is to feel. And so you need to kind of jump off that cliff. You need to trust and jump off that cliff and stay with the feelings. Like, I'd heard these teachings for a while. Not ages, but maybe a month or a couple of months I'd been hearing these teachings. And I was on the train to London. And my big thing was I had this intense fear that I was going to go crazy, that I was going to lose my mind. So randomly, I could just be on the train and this panic could come up. And I'd think, this is it. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to lose my mind. And what that would usually do is the thought would come in, oh, I'm going to go crazy. That would create panic in my body, which would create more thoughts. I'm going to go crazy, which would create more panic in the body. And I'd just be caught in this, oh no, and there'd be no way out. And I could stay in that for hours and hours, and it could just drive me crazy. And the only way I could cope would be, yeah, like the addictions, going on the phone or watching TV or smoking or whatever it is, or drinking, or, that was the only way that I knew to deal with this, to cope with this. But in this moment, something changed. Instead of getting pulled into that thinking, feeling experience, that panic experience, and getting lost in that, I saw the first anxious thought come into my mind, the first panicked thought, I'm going to lose my mind. And I saw that it created panic in the body. It was the first time I'd seen the link. The thought came in, and that thought instantaneously created the feeling of panic in the body. And I had enough awareness to see that thought, feeling. Panicked thought, panicked feeling. And then I thought, okay, I'll do what these teachers say. and I'll stay with the feeling. And I brought my attention away from the thinking and into the feeling, that panicked feeling in the body. And something in me felt scared, like, I can't stay with this. It's going to overwhelm me. And then I thought, that's just another thought. That's just another thought. I'll stay with it. Let's see. Let's see. It takes courage. Let's see what happens if I don't go with the thinking in the mind. Let's see. And I stayed. And the panic actually starts to grow. In my experience, it started to get bigger in the body. And so that was another indication. Oh, this can't be safe. I've got to go up into thinking. And then I thought, no, I want freedom. And I stayed. And then something magical happened. Panic, yes, it grew bigger, but thinking was cut. And I was just with the feeling. And I realized that that feeling of panic in the body is okay. It's safe. And I'd been drawn out of the mind. And I'd been driven into my body and into my being. And this natural causeless joy, which I hadn't experienced hardly ever in my life, if ever, this causeless joy just started bubbling up in my experience, shining in my experience. I was like, what is this? And I spent hours walking around London with all my attention just in my body, like, okay, I'm not moving from my body now. This is it. This is it. And then for probably a year after that, any time an emotional trigger came up, it was like, boom, out the mind, in the body. And it just started waking up my consciousness. Because when you do that, you come into the body and you come out of the mind, the light of consciousness starts shining more brightly. And you start getting in touch with that happiness, the same happiness that you see in a little child. You start getting in touch with that happiness. That happiness is our natural state. It's just the mind can veil it. The thinking in the mind can veil it. And one of the simplest, most effective ways to find freedom from that mind is by coming back to the body. Back to the body. And as well as that being a way of finding freedom from the mind, when you really give attention to the feelings, and like I said then, the panic grew bigger, the energy, what's held in the body, in the chakra centers, in the heart or the solar plexus or the belly, it starts to actually, it's given permission to come up. And you become your own healer. Your own presence starts to heal the feelings that are within your body. Because the feelings are just a density of energy. It's actually the feelings in your body are light condensed. It's the light of being condensed into feeling. But when you meet the feeling and you come out of the mind, that density of energy that's in the body, it starts to open up. And these feelings that you've held in, these traumas that you've held in your body your whole life, start to open up and empty out of your nervous system. And when you combine this with bioenergetics, bioenergetics is also designed to open up and release the feelings of tension and tightness held within the nervous system. The chakra centers are real. You make so many of these things that people talk about in spirituality, which seem obscure and seem like, what is that? You make so many discoveries simply by feeling the body. You want to open your third eye, feel the body. You want to awaken the heart chakra, just feel the body. And the more emotions you have inside, the greater the potential for body to really open up, actually. For the body to open up and to receive this holding presence. Because we are all loved. We're all loved. We're all held. You don't realize it when you're in the mind. But when you start to feel yourself, start to feel your body, start to embrace your feelings, stop running from yourself, you start to feel this sense of being held by this love. That can sound, I don't know how it can sound, but it's true. You start to feel held by this love, which is what you are. You start to feel held by your own love. It's really amazing. And it's a process. It takes commitment. It really takes commitment. You put the time in with this, but it's better than suffering. It's like, what's the choice? Suffer or put the work in? I'd rather put the work in. I'd rather, I'd rather, I'd rather be free.